What's up everyone, welcome back to Fisher Family Adventures. Today we're in my tackle shop and I wanted to go over the rods, reels, and rigs and jigs that I use when I'm offshore fishing. So bottom fishing, trolling, snapper, grouper, everything is covered in this video, so stay tuned. Alright, so we're going to start off with the rods and go from lightest to heaviest. So first, I've got my Penn spin fisher. This is what I use, a flat line or something to real light tackle when I'm offshore fishing. So this is a Penn spin fisher 4500 paired with a Fitzgerald rods Aqua Dream. It's a 7.6 medium heavy. Real light tackle setup. Use it more as a flat line if you see something on the surface to cast it at. And on this, like I said, I've got the flat line rigged up to it. No weight, just a hook and leader. And on these first two rods, I'm using anywhere between 30 to 40 pound braid. So something a little bit lighter for these fish, for the flat line and for the snapper. Then next, I've got my snapper setup. So this is a Penn Slammer 3500, 4500. And I've got that paired to a St. Croix Mojo Salt medium heavy rod. This I use mainly for snapper with a knocker or a fish finder rig. Something a little lighter, like a 3-ounce weight with like a 3 or a 5/0 circle hook. So that's the second setup I use. So now that we're starting to get heavier, this is one of my heavier setups. This is what I caught that 38-inch red grouper on, this exact setup here. So we've got a Penn Slammer 6500 with 65 pound braid, and that goes to a knocker rig with 200 pound crimped leader and a 9/0 circle hook. And then the rod I've got is a Penn Carnage 3 jigging spinning rod, and I believe it's a 6.6. Let me see. No, it's a 7-foot medium heavy. And this is probably my very favorite setup to use because with the rod and the reel, it's very lightweight, but you can still pretty much reel up any bottom fish if you want. The Penn Slammers are excellent because you can put up like 50, 60 pounds of drag on those grouper and just rip them out and pull them up. And finally, we've got our heavy, you know, all-purpose setup. This is a Penn Ally bent butt rod. Penn Ally. This was pretty expensive. It's a Penn Ally bent butt boat rod, and paired that to a Shimano Talica 2 16. I've got 80 pound braid on this, and I've got that, like I showed you in the rig, or I'll show you in the rig, to a snap swivel right here, crimped to my 200 pound leader. And you can put this on any bottom rig you want, but in this case I've got it hooked up to a Rapala X-Wrap trolling lure with 15 feet of leader with it. So those are the 4 setups that I use and bring onto my boat, and usually they're just a variation of that if they're anything different, but that's pretty much exactly what I use every time I go offshore fishing. So let's talk for a minute about why I use braided line when bottom fishing for grouper. So if you use a mono when you're bottom fishing, mono has more stretch in it. So when you hook that fish, you're gonna have an extra 15 to 20 feet where the fish is able to pull down and get you in that hole. And I mainly fish areas where grouper can get into holes because that's, in my opinion, where the bigger ones live. So if you're fishing mono, they have a better chance of getting you in that hole and not come back out. And braided line is really tight, and you should be able to just rip them right out at full drag. If you tied your rig right, you won't lose the fish. All right, so we've got our flat line or our live line, and the goal of this rig is gonna be to cast it out behind the boat or cast it out at, you see some birds working. It's a surface bait, so whether you're fishing like a piece of shrimp or squid or threadfin or like a live pinfish or a live threadfin, that's what you're gonna do with this rig. So you just want the swivel going to, tied to a piece of leader, which is then like 4 or 5 feet, and then tied to a hook. So let's make it now. So we've got our swivel and our leader here. This is how it looks. So we're gonna go ahead and tie the leader to the swivel. Then I always say about knots, tie whatever knot you're the best at tying. You can tie tuna knot or clinch knot, whatever you're the best at tying that. So we've got our leader tied to our swivel. We're gonna trim off the tag end. Then we've got about 3 feet here. I'm gonna trim off our leader. And we are gonna pair that to a 5/0 hook, which we've got right here. If you're using lighter leader, I like to snell the hook. If you're using heavier leader, then you're gonna want to just tie clinch knot or something on the hook. Whatever knot you're the best at tying. So we're gonna tie our leader onto our hook. We're gonna trim it. And there we go. We've got our leader, which is tied to a hook right here, and we're gonna attach it to our spinning reel right now. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and attach our braid to our flat line. And usually when you're offshore bottom fishing on a spot, you're just gonna wanna toss this rig behind the boat and see if anything on the surface hits it. I mean, I've caught tuna, kingfish, cobia, other type of fish doing it the same way. Definitely want to use a flat line when you're offshore fishing. All right, so now that's tied and tight. It is attached to the braid, and we've got our rig complete. Pretty simple, this one. All right, so the next rig up is gonna be our standard bottom fishing rig. And you can do this two different ways. You can fish it with a chicken rig or a fish finder rig. But the main difference that I do is instead of using like 60 or 80 pound leader, I use anywhere from 200 to 300 pound leader, and I crimp it because I personally don't like losing big fish. And I mean, if you see my videos, you know I catch some pretty damn big grouper. So this is just how I do it. I know some people swear by 60 or 80. Some people also use 25 pound leader when they grouper fish. I think that's absolutely crazy, but that's what some people do. So I'm gonna show you how I make my bottom fishing rigs for grouper two different ways, okay? So we've got our 200 pound leader. We've got a section of it broken off here. Then we've got our crimps. I believe these are 1.8 crimps. And if you've never crimped anything before, this may be a little bit new to you. I'm not gonna do a video on crimping unless you guys want me to, but in a sense, what we're gonna do is we're gonna put our leader through our crimp. Then we're gonna put it onto our hook. And for bottom fishing, I use this 9/0 owner circle hook. And then we're gonna use our crimping tool, put it in the appropriate slot on the crimper. And my crimping tool is a little rusty. Now we're going to crimp. Make sure we are all set. Make sure we have tension, we didn't break through. Pull it tight, trim off the tag end. And I do this section about 3 or 4 feet. Then we're gonna go to our weight. This is an 8 ounce weight. You can get away with 3, you can get around with 6. You may need a heavier weight, just depends on the conditions that you're fishing. Then we're gonna get one more crimp. Tie it to our swivel and crimp it like so. Make sure to crimp both sides of it. All right, now that's one way to do, that's just a standard fish finder rig. That's one way to tie a bottom rig. You just tie this directly to your braid right here. Then drop it down, and the weight's gonna sit at the bottom, and your bait's gonna drift up, and the fish is gonna eat it. That's one way to tie it. Now let's show you another way to tie this rig. And this is gonna be a chicken rig. So I'm just trimming, cutting my leader off, and we're gonna retie it, okay? So you may not like doing it this second way, and you may just want to go a standard fish finder rig, but I think you'll break less fish off by doing it on this way. All right, we're gonna start by getting another crimp. And this time we are going to crimp it to a snap swivel. Crimp one section of our line to a snap swivel. All right, now that part's crimped, we are going to use one of these, what they're called, swivel sleeves. It looks like so. And we're gonna feed it through our leader. Stop it about halfway down. And we are going to crimp it. Now these you definitely want to make sure to crimp both sides so it doesn't slide around on the leader. You check to see if it's sliding. Nope, not sliding, it's all good. So now we are gonna make what we call a branch. And this is how people make like these deep drop rigs. Is they'll just do this, but they'll do like a 10-foot section of leader. And they'll do like 6 or more branches. All right. So now we're gonna crimp the one end of that 1-foot section we just cut off to the snap swivel we just put on. Trim the tag end, and then now we're gonna crimp our hook on. Like I said, you can tie this with lighter leader, these same rigs, just don't do the crimping part. All right. Crimp our hook on. And then finally, we are going to crimp our swivel at the top on. All right, so this is, after we trim our tag end, this is what our rig is going to look like in the end. You see right here, this part, this swivel is going to your braid. Then coming down, we've got a branch which our one hook off is coming off of, and then we've got our snap swivel at the bottom, which we were going to put a sinker on, anywhere from 4 to 8 to 10 ounces. So I personally don't think it matters using crimps. I don't think it'll be any different than using regular line. Maybe if it's crystal clear, you'll find a fish won't bite, but I mean, I use this all the time and I don't see a difference in it. So this is what I use for bottom fishing, is those 2 rigs I just showed you now. All right, so I just showed you the rig I use for grouper or anything else when I'm bottom fishing. Now let's talk about snapper. So I've got our braid tied to a swivel, which is then tied to a piece of 60-pound leader. Then once I've got that tied, I'm gonna put usually a lighter weight, and this is gonna be for snapper fishing. So when you're snapper fishing on the bottom, you're gonna wanna use a smaller hook and a smaller bait, okay? So we're gonna feed our 3-ounce weight through here, and we're gonna grab a 3/0 hook. So let me get a 3/0 hook out of my box. Right here. So we use a 3 or 5/0 I use for snapper fishing. And we're just gonna tie our hook on here. Trim our tag end off. And there we go. We've got our snapper fishing rig on the bottom, like so. Standard, you can use a chicken rig, like I said before, or a fish finder, knocker. This is gonna be a knocker rig. So, whatever you wanna use for snapper, but this is just what I use. Smaller bait, smaller fish. Because snapper don't have as big a mouths as grouper, so they tend to go for smaller baits than bigger ones. All right, so now let's go to the fourth type of setup that I run when I'm offshore fishing. So, this is kind of my all-purpose setup that I use. And I mainly do this on my bent butt rod, right? So I tie a really heavy snap swivel to my braided line. So as you've got here, this is a really heavy one. So we're gonna go ahead and tie it on there. And this is what I use as kind of an all-purpose, like I mentioned. So you can either use it for trolling, or you can just hook up one of your bottom rigs on it and put it on it. And I typically duplicate these setups. So these are the 4 types of setups that I use, but I'll have multiples of each ones when I'm offshore fishing. All right, now that we've got it tight, and I'll show you what I use these for. All right, now we're gonna trim off our tag end, and you just tie your braid directly to one of these big snap swivels. And I like using the snap swivels because it's easy to change in and out, like a rig or a trolling lure or a jig or whatever you want to use. All right, now we've got our snap swivel on here. You can pretty much put on anything you want. You can put on a vertical jig that you already have pre-tied with a piece of lead or two, like this. If you want a vertical jig for grouper, snapper, amberjack, or whatever. Then you can also put on a trolling lure, like so. I have these pre-rigged with just a swivel ready to go. So if you see, you can just hook the swivel directly on here, and then you can toss your trolling lure out and you're ready to go. So it's kind of an all-purpose rig. Then we've got a skirt here. So around here they sell rigged ballyhoo with a leader or wire or whatever ready to go, and you just need to put a skirt on it. So I keep these skirts on board, and this is a Joe Shoots Lures, and I think this is a Rapala Extra. So you can buy these and just put the skirt right over that pre-rigged ballyhoo, and you're ready to go trolling. All right, guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoy content like this, please subscribe to my channel and like this video.